welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. For years, Jenna had the same password on her phone, my birthday, a small, daily reminder that in the whirl of our busy lives, there was an US. It was an insignificant thing that I cherished. That's why, on a drizzly Thursday afternoon, when I tapped in the familiar digits and was met with the cold denial of an incorrect password alert, a needle of suspicion pricked at my calm. I tried again, thinking it was a mistake. Nothing. I was locked out. It was an absurd moment, standing there, feeling betrayed by a piece of technology that echoed a deeper betrayal I was just beginning to sense. "Jenna," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady as she walked into the kitchen. "Did you change your phone password?" She didn't meet my eye as she replied, "Oh, yeah, I thought it was time for a change." Her voice was too casual, her smile too forced. "But why?" "You've always used my birthday," I said, watching her closely. "People change passwords, Mark. It's not a big deal." Jenna brushed off the question, but her dismissive tone felt like a shove pushing me further into doubt. That evening, the question gnawed at me. In the quiet of our bedroom, with Jenna's steady breathing filling the space, I picked up her phone again. A guess came to me, an unlikely but possible new password, the birthday of our mutual friend, Eric. To my shock and dismay, it worked. The phone unlocked, revealing messages that no husband should ever read. Messages that confirmed a relationship far beyond friendship, painted in the worst hues of betrayal. The next few days were a blur of cold silences and covert glances. I watched, I waited, and then, one day, I came home early. The sound of laughter drew me to our bedroom, a place that once held the whispers of our shared dreams. The door was ajar, and through it, a sight that shattered the remnants of trust one clung to. Jenna, barely clothed, and Eric, in a way that friends should never be. The shock left me reeling. "Jenna." The word exploded from me, a mix of rage and heartbreak. She scrambled up, her eyes wide with shock. "Mark. It's not what it looks like," she stammered, her face pale. Eric, caught in the act, could only muster a weak, "Man, I can explain." But there was nothing to explain that I hadn't already seen. "You both betrayed me." My voice was a roar in the stillness of our room. From that moment, the course of action was clear. Betrayal begot revenge. As I plotted my next moves, a cold resolve settled over me. I would make sure Jenna regretted her actions deeply. Our divorce was just the start. I had plans to ruin her destiny, ensuring our paths never crossed again in this lifetime. The thrill of the plan was tinged with the acid of bitterness, but I was determined. They had undone the life we had built together, and I would make sure they paid for it. The story of Jenna and Eric was far from over. The days that followed were a masterclass in restraint. Jenna tried to smooth things over, her apologies a tapestry of excuses and pleas for forgiveness. I responded with cold indifference, my mind fixed on the betrayal. Every sweet word from her felt like a snake's hiss. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Mark. It just did." "I still love you," Jenna pleaded one evening, her eyes searching mine for a spark of the old warmth. "Love?" The word tasted bitter. "Your love changed its password, Jenna. Your love lied and cheated. Don't talk to me about love." Jenna flinched as if struck. "I'm sorry, I really am. Can we try to work this out? For us." "There is no us to work out for," I replied, my voice flat. Determined to reclaim some semblance of control, I met with Eric the next day. We chose a public park, neutral ground swathed in the dying light of dusk. He was already there, sitting on a bench, his posture defeated. "Mark, he began as I approached. "Save it," I cut him off sharply. "You're the last person I want to hear excuses from." Eric sighed, rubbing his face with his hands. "I know I messed up. I never wanted to hurt you. It got out of hand." "Out of hand?" I scoffed. "You betrayed your best friend. You think a sorry fixes everything?" "No, I don't. I just hope you can somehow find it in you to forgive me," he said, looking up with a pained expression. "Forgiveness? That's rich coming from you," I shot back. "You thought I'd never find out?" He had no answer, just a resigned shake of his head. The silence between us stretched, filled only by the distant sounds of children playing. My next words were cold, calculated. "I want you out of our lives, Eric. I don't care how you do it, but I want you gone. You will also compensate for this betrayal." Eric nodded slowly, the gravity of his situation sinking in. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." "You can't make this right." "But you're going to try," I said with finality. As I walked away, the gears of my plan were already turning. The scene at the park was just the beginning. I had in mind a legal battle that would strip Jenna of her comforts and challenge Eric's finances. I contacted a lawyer, specializing in divorce and asset recovery, and laid out the groundwork for a lawsuit that would be both public and painful. Meanwhile, Jenna sensed the change in my demeanor. "What are you planning, Mark?" she asked one night, fear creeping into her voice as she noticed the legal documents on our dining table. "Justice," I said simply, my eyes meeting hers with an unwavering resolve. "You can't do this, Mark. Please, think about what you're doing," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "This is the consequence of your choices, Jenna." "I'm just following through," I replied, the documents in my hand a declaration of war. As I prepared for the coming storm, I knew this was only the beginning. Jenna and Eric would learn the true cost of their betrayal, and I would ensure that justice, no matter how harsh, was served. The intrigue of my plan was set, and the wheels of retribution were in motion. The air in the lawyer's office was heavy, laden with the scent of polished wood and impending conflict. As I sat across from Mr. Reynolds, my attorney, the weight of the upcoming legal battle settled over me like a cloak. "We have a strong case for both divorce and damages, given the circumstances," Mr. Reynolds stated, tapping the stack of evidence laid out on his desk. The pictures, the messages, they all painted a clear picture of betrayal. "I want to make sure they both feel the consequences of their actions," I said firmly, meeting his gaze. Mr. Reynolds nodded, his expression serious. "Understood. We'll file for divorce on grounds of infidelity and sue for emotional distress. This will also affect the financial settlements." "Good. And what about him?" I asked, my voice hard as I thought about Eric. "We'll include him in the lawsuit. It complicates the case but makes your stand stronger," he advised. As preparations for the legal onslaught continued, I kept my interactions with Jenna to a minimum. She tried to initiate conversation, likely hoping to mitigate the legal storm she sensed was coming, but I remained distant, my answers short and devoid of emotion. One evening, Jenna confronted me in the living room, her face drawn and tired. "Mark, is there really no way we can sort this out? Just the two of us?" "This went beyond us the moment you chose him over our marriage," I replied coldly. Jenna's face crumpled, and she took a shaky breath. "I know I made a mistake, but don't you think this is going too far? Think about what this will do to both of our lives. Our lives were altered the moment you decided to betray me, Jenna. Now, you're just facing the consequences." The day we went to court, the air was tense. Jenna sat beside her lawyer, casting nervous glances in my direction. Eric wasn't present yet, which seemed to make her even more anxious. When Eric finally arrived, his appearance was disheveled, the weight of the impending legal repercussions evident in his slumped shoulders. Our eyes met briefly, a silent exchange of regret and animosity. As the proceedings began, Mr. Reynolds laid out the case with precision, his voice clear and unfaltering. Your Honor, we are here not just to dissolve a marriage but to highlight a breach of trust so severe that it has caused significant emotional distress to my client. Jenna's lawyer tried to argue for reconciliation and leniency, suggesting that the affair was a lapse in judgment that didn't warrant the harsh penalties we were seeking. Your Honor, a momentary lapse. Mr. Reynolds countered sharply. The evidence suggests a prolonged deception, not a momentary lapse. We have text messages, photographs, this was an ongoing affair. As the judge listened intently, I watched Jenna and Eric. She was biting her lip, a nervous habit she had when she was anxious. Eric kept his gaze down, his face a mask of resignation. Given the evidence presented, I will need to review the details before making a final decision, the judge announced after a long pause. As we left the courtroom, Jenna approached me, her eyes pleading. Mark, please. Can't we just end this here? I'm sorry. I really am. I wish your sorry could undo everything, Jenna, I replied without warmth. But it can't. Walking away, I felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. The gears of justice were turning, and my plans for retribution were unfolding. This was the path I had chosen, driven by betrayal, and I was determined to see it through to the bitter end. The courtroom was a theater, the actors poised in their roles as the final act of my meticulously crafted revenge unfolded. As the judge prepared to deliver the verdict, the tension was palpable. Jenna and Eric sat rigid, their fates hanging in the balance. I sat, a quiet observer, my plan nearing its climax. Mr. Stevens, the judge began, addressing me directly, this court recognizes the pain you have endured. However, we must also consider all circumstances surrounding this case. I nodded, giving nothing away. Mr. Reynolds leaned in, whispering, ready for the final move. I simply nodded again, my gaze fixed on Jenna and Eric. This was the moment I had orchestrated with cold precision. The judge continued, therefore, I grant the divorce on grounds of infidelity and order Mr. Eric Foster to compensate Mr. Stevens for emotional damages. The gavel's fall echoed in the courtroom, a sound marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of the last of my revenge. Outside the courtroom, Eric approached me, a desperate look on his face. Mark, I never meant for any of this. Save it, I cut him off. My voice was calm but carried an edge sharper than any knife. Your apologies are worthless. Turning from him, I found Jenna, her eyes brimming with tears. Mark, please, can we just leave all this behind? No, Jenna, I said, my voice void of the warmth it once held for her. We can never go back. But my revenge was not yet complete. The legal victory was just a part of the pain I intended to inflict. Over the next weeks, I launched a series of financial audits against Eric's business, revealing not only unsavory business practices but also tax evasion that he had hidden even from Jenna. His professional reputation crumbled, his financial stability obliterated. For Jenna, I ensured that the divorce settlement was as crippling as legally possible. The house, the car, substantial alimony, she was left with nothing but a shell of her former life. But the true masterpiece of my revenge came when I revealed to Jenna the most devastating part of my plan. As we met for the last time to finalize our divorce papers, I handed her an envelope. A parting gift, I said, my voice cold. Jenna opened the envelope, her hands trembling. Inside were photographs, not of her and Eric, but of me, at various charity events and community projects, all dated during the times she was with Eric. Each photo a proof of my own fidelity and commitment to the community, contrasted starkly against her deceit. What is this? Jenna asked, confusion and realization dawning in her eyes. Proof, I said simply. That while you were destroying our marriage, I was building a better world. And everyone will know it. Her face paled, understanding the depth of her folly and the breadth of my retribution. She had lost everything, not just a husband, but her social standing, her comfort, and any sympathy the community might have had for her. As I walked away from her for the last time, I felt a complex mix of victory and void. My revenge was complete, absolute. Jenna and Eric were destroyed, their lives dismantled as thoroughly as they had dismantled mine. But the cost of such revenge was a solitude I had not anticipated, a victory tainted by the ashes of what could have been. As I moved on, the final lesson of my vengeance settled in my bones. Betrayal could indeed be repaid, but the price of such retribution was often as costly to the avenger as to the betrayer. With my enemies vanquished, I turned towards a new life, one built not on the ruins of the old, but on the hope of what was yet to come.